The word non-racism. That too means that there are these four groups, but we won't be prejudiced against each other.
No.
But you still acknowledge there are four groups.
Yeah.
But we won't be prejudiced against each other, right? Then we came with this one here. We said, no, there's only one race. In reality, it's only one race, the human race.
Yes.
And to us, multiracialism and non-racialism is nothing but racism multiplied.
Oh.
So don't believe the thing that the ANC were underground and created June 16.
Yeah.
Neither did the PAC. They all were too deep underground, they didn't know a thing. These kids were influenced by the Black Consciousness movement and specifically by the scholar movement. So that's where the June 16th uprisings began. But the greatest thing was Steve. Everybody heard this is what Steve Biko is all about. Because he was a funny thing happened in court as well. I remember the judge asked Steve, he said, but why do you call yourself black? I mean, you're more brown, than black. And Steve looks at the judge. He says, why do you call yourself white? You're more pink than white. And that was basically, but my personal thing in that case, they withdrew charges from me.
From you personally?
Yes, I thought, geez, I'm going home now. So the two of the guys, there was a Lingam and Soli Ismail. Charges were withdrawn against those two. Then came a guy called Ruben Air, they withdrew it on him too. So the case is getting smaller, we were 13. Then they withdrew from me, so I thought this is freedom. No, the moment they withdrew from me, they recharged me. And I was charged with a lady called, her name, initially it was Yvonne Cry, but then her real name was Namsisi Kuzwayo.
Okay.
And both of us were charged for the type of theatre we produced. And the type of poetry, and then that was read at our theatre groups and that. And they felt that the theatre we did would create feelings of hatred towards whites. And in that way, whites will be murdered and etc. etc. So I was charged with this lady then. So they took my trial out completely. And those days I was out on bail for about 5,000 rand, which was a lot of money.
A lot.
Yes. Well, and I had to report every day to the... Although I lived in Johannesburg, they restricted me to Pretoria, and I had to report daily to the Pretoria police station. One of my bail conditions. And then later on, the state found this case of ours is going to be ridiculous because we're going to get experts from overseas to say, can theatre bring about the revolution? So they realized it would be embarrassing, and that's when they withdrew charges against me. Right? So that was one of the reasons. But for the rest of the guys, all got convicted, ended up on Robben Island. The rest of the SESO, the leadership, Black Consciousness, all of them went to Robben Island. But some of them got the top, got 6 years in prison, others got 5 years. So people thought now...
But what happened to Biko then?
No, Biko was not charged. You see, he came as a witness.
He came as a witness.
He just left, so he went back home as a banned person, right? But his word spread, and now people are saying, what is the Black Consciousness movement going to do now? Because its entire leadership is on Robben Island. But we said, no, this isn't going to happen like what happened to the ANC and the PAC. Collectively, we trained enough guys to take over. So that's when I came in again on BPC, on executive, to continue our work within the Black Consciousness movements and that. And then came October 19th, prior to October 19th, when Steve got murdered. Now, one of the reasons for Steve's death, Steve was banned, right? And he couldn't leave the magisterial area of King Williamstown. So what he did, he got together with him, and there's a guy called P.C. Jones. Both were very close friends. They decided to go around to Cape Town to speak to different liberation movements, like the Unity movement, few people that had links with the ANC, the PAC. Steve went on the journey to speak to those guys, and he was thinking of leaving the country to unite all liberation movements. the ANC, the PAC, and the Black Consciousness Movement. This was the ideal he wanted to do. He said, look, we've got to liberate all the movements.
Yeah.
But this is when they got arrested for breaking his banning order. We feel somebody informed on it.
Yeah.
And then you know what happened. The rest Steve got taken, then tortured.
Yeah.
Then after his death, Black consciousness has really come well onto the country. And the government then decided to ban the Black consciousness movement. Then came the famous Black Wednesday, October 19th,
Okay.
where they banned the movement totally. Many of us were detained at, I was detained in a prison called Modapi.
Okay.
But no
Where's
charge
that?
anything. You just go to stay in prison. The people like Dr. Motlana, who was part of the committee of 10 in Soweto,
Yes.
all of them were together in prison. So when the party government thought, the minute we did do this, it will be the same like how when the ANC and PAC were banned, there was a culture of fear. It will be the same. All political activity will die.
Yeah.
But what they forgot, since Black consciousness was an attitude of mind, a way of life, you can't ban it. You can't ban an idea. It's going to survive. So the minute we were there in prison, they banned the Black People's Convention. I was at prison. This guy was with us. When they released him, a guy called Laibon Mabasa.
Yes.
Laibon, and there's a guy called Ishmael Makabela.
Okay.
They got out and they started another movement, ASAPO, the
Okay.
Indian People's Organization, after the banning of PPC.
Yeah.
So that's when the system realized you cannot ban us. ASAPO then took over the reins on the Black consciousness movement. And from that, ASAPO has always been on the stronghold. This is just briefly, I'm just giving you a broad sort of outline there.
Yeah. That's quite interesting though. I mean, looking at the journey that you guys have to travel and believing that the whole idea is that after the death of Biko, it was we're not turning back.
There was no turning back. In fact, after Biko's death, we just said we're continuing. Because Biko became a martyr.
Yeah.
His ideas are still there.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, Biko thought ahead. He really thought ahead. When he came out about the Black consciousness and attitude of mind, a way of life,
Yeah.
it took quite a mind to think of that.
Yeah.
I mean, defining Black consciousness. You know, there's a whole thing where he defined Black consciousness. And it had its impact on everyone.
Yeah.
So after his death, there was a lot of anger. But the struggle continued. The only thing the Black consciousness movement didn't have at that time was a military wing.
Okay.
Later on, when you had like our current, the former president of ASAPO, Mercy Guru Mangananda,
Yes.
Jairus Kahongesh, began the military wing outside the country.
Yeah.
Where a lot of our guys were trained in Libya. You know, that's that. So you had two factions. You had the exile movement outside, and you had the local, the ASAPO in the country.
Yeah.
This is just very briefly, this is what it was then.
Okay. And then looking at the movement of ASAPO, I think which you were a part of from that time on. As a Black consciousness movement, what were you aiming at? What was the main goal that you were looking at?
Well, the main goal itself was the total liberation of our country.
Okay.
And I mean total liberation. We were looking at the issue of land, because without any land, you will still be a beggar.
Yeah.
We needed the land to create a self-reliance thing.
Yeah.
We're looking at land. We were looking at creating, put it this way here, what we call an anti-racist, egalitarian society.
Okay.
You know, this is what we were really looking at, which in very much was a sort of a socialist state we're looking at. You know, the collective ownership to everything.
Of the
in this
resources,
country.
yeah.
And then when we speak of anti-racism too, you see, we drew a line, the Black consciousness movement, we drew a line between the word non-racialism and multiracialism and anti-racism.
Okay.
Like to us, multiracialism is still racist, because you're speaking of the human being divided in distinct racial groups.
Yeah.
Indian
whites.
So you're trying to
Blacks,
say
coloureds.
this colours.
Yeah.
You're looking at this group as being different species of human beings.
Yes.
That's multiracialism, but the party government had the same thing.
Yeah.
The ANC was using the same language.
Yeah.
Then we looked at the word non-racism. That too means that there are these four groups, But we won't be prejudiced against each other.
No.
But you still acknowledge there are 4 groups.
Yeah.
But we won't be prejudiced against each other, right? Then we came with this one game. We said, no, there's only one race. In reality, it's only one race, the human race.
Yes.
And to us, multiracialism and non-racialism is nothing but racism multiplied.
Oh,
and that's when we came with that idea. So guys will ask us, what about your black? I said, our black consciousness is not attacking a person on race. It's attacking a person on the privilege they define for themselves.
Okay.
It is an apartheid type of thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when we have a new country, all forms of racism will be totally out.
Yeah.
Like Steve always said, in his writings, he said, the real quest he's looking for is creating a new humanity. I think it's an essay he wrote on a quest towards a new humanity.
Yeah.
And this is what Steve wanted to do. He was looking at an anti-racist society, free of all forms of exploitation.
Yeah. I believe that you cannot make such a huge impact on the world with an ideology. And the story gets to be a 5-minute story.
Also, always a question became, should we work within the apartheid system?
Always.
Or should we work outside the apartheid system?
Okay.
And we've always decided...
What did that mean?
You see, what happened was, at one time, people felt, in the early days, no man, why don't we just join some of these apartheid-created movement, like the Indian Council or the Bantu homeland, and try to change it within.
Yeah.
He says, you're wasting your time, you will become like that.
Yeah.
So we rejected any form of collaboration with the government.
Yeah.
All forms of collaboration was dead. We don't want it. We don't negotiate with them. We've got nothing to do with them. This was a black consciousness idea in those days. We do not collaborate with any government-created platform. Like at that time, people thought, early days was a thing called the Colored Labour Party. And the Colored Labour Party began by saying we are anti-apartheid. But they're working within government institutions.
Which are driven by apartheid laws.
That's it,
so it doesn't matter how anti-apartheid you are.
A group here saying we are anti-government, but as an Indian organization, we're going to work with it to bring change.
Yeah.
Then you had guys like Buthelezi working within the government to bring change. You see, there were some that were total sellouts, and others that claim they're not sellouts, but they're working within the government to negotiate.
30 years later, after liberation, we're still speaking about the ideas of, black consciousness. Had we taken them seriously then, where would the country be now?
We would have probably been in a very liberated country by now.
Yeah.
We taken what we really meant, how we wanted to see things.
Yeah.
Because you must just remember that when they started with Kodesa and then the option, Mandela gave in too much. Really, they didn't look at essential things like how do you eradicate poverty?
Yeah.
And this poverty has been enforced on people. It has been created by the previous government. So
it was not a matter of circumstance and then there was poverty. No, it was engineered.
Yes, because you must remember, I was explaining this to some of the guys. For instance, if you look at history.
Yeah.
Now, what was the reason for introducing the pass laws initially?
Okay.
What happened at one time, right up to the 30s, a lot of black communities were very self-reliant. The guys had their own agricultural things.
Yes.
Right? And even they were supplying a lot of agricultural products to the cities and that. Now this thing was going on. But then you must remember, with the discovery of gold, two of them, I would say the thing that have changed the history of this country, two things: discovery of diamonds in Kimberley, and discovery of gold.
In
so this
Johannesburg.
took South Africa from an agricultural society to an industrial society. These are the biggest changes they did. But you need labor. Now, these guys are not going to come around from the agricultural way, living self-sufficient to come and come look for a job in the cities.
Yeah.
So through the past laws, they introduced a thing called a poll tax.
Okay.
So the guys had to pay some money. And to get money, because the guys didn't have money because you're living off the land.
Yeah.
So you had to come and look for a job.
To generate that money.
To generate that money to get it. So this is how you force people to come work into the cities itself.
Yeah.
This is where they really utilize this thing of taking off, and then came obviously the most famous Land Act. You know, the Land Act totally, in the apartheid regime, legalized the theft of the land. All indigenous black people were allowed to have a 30% of the land, whereas the whites had the rest.
Had the rest.
They stole everything from this country.
I honestly think that we need a revolution where young people can also, 30 years looking back from 1994, I believe one of the biggest successes that we had in a country as far as young people are concerned.
It was a turning point.
I'm looking at it now that we made more drug addicts and alcohol addicts, substance abusers, more than the apartheid government has ever done in their time of.
And you see, another very strange thing is, during the apartheid time, education.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at guys I worked with.
Yeah.
Bantu Stephen, we still think was murdered. They claimed it was an accident. He was a major guy in the Black Consciousness movement with PPC and Azapo, Robben Islander, right? Bantu Stephen, Moshiwa Lakota, Aubrey Makwena, Prime Moshidi, all these guys went through what they call Bantu education.
Yes.
But they were damn good. They were articulate, they knew the history and everything.
My point is
really, because if you look at the Black Consciousness founder members, I came through so-called Indian education.
Yeah.
But the guys were more articulate and sharper than kids going through schools today.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Muntu, I used to tease Muntu, hey Muntu, how's a Bantu education? To laugh at each other. He tells me, you with your Charo in education.
Yeah.
These guys went through these schools. And what was very interesting, just by the way.
I mean, looking at all the leaders that we had that pushed and the idea of liberation, and emancipation, all of them were educated.
Yeah.
All of them were educated who pushed it. The guys who are still alive today, they understood the importance of education. And what they got then was Bantu education.
Yeah.
Maybe one question.
Yeah.
As a closing of this session.
Yeah, okay.
What's your wish list? What's the one thing that you look at the country now and you go like, I wish this can change, or I wish we could have a different setup on this? What's the one thing that you wish that you could change in the country now?
I think the best wish I do, what I really sincerely hope, is that we reach a stage collectively where we become totally self-reliant. We must start creating our own wealth.
Yeah.
I, for instance, would say, to give an example of, there's a lot of things we can do.
Yeah.
The moment we go onto that route, we are going towards real freedom.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things we've got to, the land possession and all of that will have to follow.
Yeah.
But we must become totally self-reliant.
Yeah.
And we should aspire towards achieving the best within our communities. Let's take for instance, just some idea I thought about years ago. I was sitting with the president of Azapo, Masiburu Mangena.
Yeah.
We were at a funeral in Bekazar.
Okay.
Now, sitting in this one guy's house, I looked across all these, what I call this matchbox type of houses, right? All in a row there. So I told Masiburu, just check out there. You see youngsters with music and that, having beers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses, right? I said, look in front. Is anything growing there? Look, he says, I said, well, now what will happen? Say, for instance, the first houses, people say, look, why don't you guys plant cabbage?
Yeah.
You go to the next guy, why don't you plant tomatoes?
Yeah.
You go to the next guy, why don't you plant onions? So in this way, you're already becoming self-sufficient. So the minute it starts growing, you all start exchanging this
Yes.
and that.
Yes.
Then the excess you got, you keep it, you hold on a Saturday, and you have a people's market. So all the things you planted, you start sending it out to the sell it to the community.
Yeah.
So you're already on your step towards self-reliance. That every piece of land ground we got, we plant something. Now what we did with this Abu Asfat Institute, one time the kids decided in one of the schools to do their own project. You couldn't believe, they started planting flowers. And they started selling flowers because from the institute and the school they formed a thing called peace clubs. So to raise funds, they started planting their own stuff. But that was self-reliance. We have to go to the stage of stop being dependent. Be totally free is to be self-reliant.
Talking now, I'm thinking we need to interview some Afrikaner guys, somebody from an Afrikaner circle, to just try to find out how do they do stuff. One of the things that you mentioned is that Lenasia, as it is, most of the development here are community-based.
Yeah.
You guys coming together and say, let's build up.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily the government coming and saying, or crying for the government and say the budget but you guys coming together and say, what is it that we can do? I also have that cry in my heart that communities where we come from, people can say, we might not have much money, but there must be something that we have to be able to rebuild our communities. Maybe not for us, but for the sake of our children. And make
also
sure that
you
our
remember
youngsters,
by doing that, you're really regaining your humanity, your dignity.
Yes.
The most important thing is having your dignity.
Yes.
This is what, and you look at it, you see that what's been happening is that as long as the people become a dependent people, the ANC is constantly going to exploit them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to remind, before elections, they go with food parcels.
Yeah.
And in fact, they're not supposed to use our tax money.
Yes.
Because, wherever they go, they realize they take
Yeah.
food parcels. And just before that election, because they created this culture of dependency.
Yes.
The 300 rand a month is total dependency.
So, well, thank you very much for welcoming us to your beautiful house and allowing us to have this interview here. I'm sure we'll come back because there's a lot to dig out and there's a lot that we would want to know about your journey and the Black Consciousness movement and how we got here. From us social, we would like to say thank you very much for the
It's a pleasure.
little time that we had.
It's a
we really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Anytime.